everyone, welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. Today's tutorial is going to be showing you how to make this flower mum crochet stitch. This stitch is part of my Autumn Rhapsody blanket pattern, which is a stitch sampler blanket that's being released as a crochet along as a free pattern on my blog. If you'd like more details about that blanket, please see the link below in the description and it will give you all those details about that beautiful blanket. This stitch is very interesting because it is worked into your project. You make the center as part of your project, and then you come back and crochet the petals onto that center. So it gives it a nice unique look. It can be used in a lot of different projects. You can use this in scarves, in wraps, headbands, all kinds of wonderful things. So what you're going to need to get started today, I have my Clover size H 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. I have some scraps of PAINTBOX cotton ARAN yarn that I had left over from my blanket. I have a peach orange color for my color A, soft fudge for color B, color C is Seville orange, and for color D, I have red wine. So bits and pieces that I had left over from my blanket. I also am going to be using a stitch marker as well to mark my stitches for the centers. And that's all that you need to get started today. This can be worked up in a variety of different yarn weights, different hook sizes. You can do anything you want with this stitch. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 39, and that is going to be working in my multiples of 12 times 2 for 24 plus 13 equals 37, and then an additional 2 for my foundation chain. So 39 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With 39 chains on my hook, I'm going to double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook, and those skipped chains are going to count as my first stitch. And then I'm going to work a double crochet in every chain to the end. I finished working a double crochet in every chain. I'm going to have a total of 37 stitches. Now I'm going to switch over to color B at the end of that row, turn my work, and for row 2 I'm going to work 1 row of single crochet stitches. So chain 1 and single crochet in the same stitch and in each stitch to the end of this row. And this is basically the base of my center. I wanted 1 single crochet row in the same color as what my center will be, so that way the peach color won't show through those centers. So just work 1 row of single crochet, and our next row we will move on to our centers. For row 3, I'm going to turn and chain 1, single crochet in that first stitch, single crochet in the next 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to work my first mum center in the next stitch. The mum centers are worked in the front and back loops of the stitch that you're working in separately. So I'm going to begin working in the back loop only of that next stitch, and I'm going to place 4 single crochets, and I'm going to put a stitch marker in that first stitch so I can keep track of that first stitch. But 4 single crochets in that same back loop. So 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to rotate my work just slightly because I want to place 4 single crochets in that front loop of that same stitch. So I'm just going to be using that unused front loop from that same stitch and place 4 more single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I have a total of 8 single crochets worked in the front and back loops separately. And now I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch that I made. But I'm going to want to work that next round in the back loops only, so I'm going to slip stitch into the back loop. Now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to place 2 single crochets in each of those stitches from that previous round, working in the back loops only. So there's the first one, and I'm going to want to place my stitch marker to keep track of that first stitch. There's my second single crochet worked in that back loop. And now 2 single crochets in every other stitch, working in just the back loop, leaving that front loop unworked. So I will have a total of 16 stitches for round 2 of my center. So verify that you have 16 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So I have 16 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch to that first stitch, again in the back loop only. And now I'm going to slip stitch into the back loop of the next 7 stitches. So only in the back loop. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now I'm back to working in my row. I finished that first center, and I want to single crochet in the next 11 stitches. So I'm going to pull up that center and make sure that I pick up the next stitch and I don't skip any stitches, and I'm going to single crochet in that next stitch. For a total of 11 single crochets. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I'm going to work a mum center in the next stitch. So I'm going to repeat those same steps. Once we finish that next mum stitch, we're going to repeat those 11 stitches in between. And essentially, you're just going to continue repeating that same sequence, 11 single crochets in between each mum center. So we're just going to make sure that we're not skipping any stitches, and single crochet in the next 11 stitches. So continue repeating that sequence on down to the end of your row. When you've completed that last repeat, you should have 6 stitches remaining at the end. After working that last repeat and completing that last mum center, I have 6 stitches left at the end of my row. I'm going to single crochet in those remaining 6 stitches. Then I will be ready to fasten off this color for the centers and move on to the petals of the flower. So single crochet to the end, and we'll fasten off that color, and we will move on to our centers, working our petals. So now we're ready to work the petals for our mum flowers here, and I'm using color C for the very center. And I'm going to be attaching this yarn to one of the unused front loops. Remember, we worked in the back loops only, and I will have 8 unused front loops from that round. So it doesn't matter which one, just pick an unused front loop. You'll have 8 of them to work in, and we're going to attach with a slip stitch and then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch in the next unused front loop from that same round. And I'm just going to work that all the way around in each of those 8 unused front loops, chaining 3, slip stitch in the next. Chain 3, slip stitch in the next. Chain 3, slip stitch in the next. Chain 3, slip stitch in the next, chain 3, slip stitch in the next, chain 3, slip stitch in the next. Make sure that you've worked in 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And once you have worked in all of those unused front loops, you're just basically going to slip stitch back into that first front loop that you worked your first slip stitch into. And then you're ready to fasten off color C. So now we're ready to move on to our final 2 rounds of our petals. And I'm going to be switching to my color D here, and I'm going to be attaching that yarn to the front loop of this final round that's around the outside of that center. And I'm going to be working in these loops separately. So I'm going to be working 1 round in the front loop, and then I'm going to come back and work in the back loop. So it'll give us double thickness here with these petals. So it doesn't matter where you attach, you're just going to be picking the front loop only. You're not going to be picking up the back loop of that final round. And we're going to be doing the same thing that we just did by slip stitching and then chaining 3, and then slip stitching in the front loop only of the next stitch. Chaining 3, slip stitch in the front loop of the next stitch. So you're going to have 16 stitches that you're working into. So you're going to be continuing to repeat that chain 3, slip stitch into the next front loop of the next stitch. Chaining 3, slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch. Chaining 3, front loop of the next stitch. So you'll have a total of 16. It might be a little more difficult because we had those stitches that we worked our slip stitches into to get back to our row. But just work in the front loop only all the way around. So once I've worked in each of the front loops of those 16 stitches and I get back to the beginning, I'm not going to fasten off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing, working in those back loops that I left unused. So what I'm going to do when I get to the end here, you can see my first stitch is here. I'm going to come to the back of that stitch, and see that there is that unused back loop back here. And I'm going to slip stitch into that unused back loop and chain 3. The next unused back loop, slip stitch, chain 3. The next unused back loop, slip stitch, chain 3. The next unused, and just all the way around, again, 16 stitches that I'll be working. So continue repeating that around in all of those unused back loops. Once we've worked in the back loops of each of those stitches and we get back to the beginning, we're just going to go ahead and slip stitch to our first stitch and fasten off. And you can see here how full that flower is by working in those front and back loops of that final stitch. It really gives a nice appearance to that flower and really fills it in. So you really can't see that mum center at all. It really fills it in nicely. So now you're just going to repeat those same that same sequence of stitches for all of the rest of your mum centers. And of course you can do any colors that you want. In fact, I think these would look lovely in just one color petals. So instead of, you know, doing a center like this, you would just have your color working through all of those rounds just the same as we did. It's just that you would not fasten off. You would just continue on. You'd work in the front loops of that first round and then slip stitch to the front loop of the second round and then work your last round in the back loops of that second round. And you would have a really beautiful flower as well. So just continue on repeating those steps to finish your petals for all of your mum centers. So now that we've finished all of the petals for our mum flowers, we're going to move on to our final row. And again, we are going to be fastening off and pulling back in our color A. And I'm just going to pull that back up into my work here and turn. And this is just going to be a row of double crochet. But I'm going to want to maintain my stitch count. I'm going to chain 3 and I'm going to double crochet in the first 5 stitches here until I get to my mum center. So there's a total of 6 stitches before that mum center because that chain 3 counts as my first stitch. So there's 3, 4, 5. Make sure and get that last stitch. So I have 6 stitches. Now remember, we worked our mum center into a stitch. We want to work another stitch to make up for that. And I'm going to pick up a stitch. There's a bar back here from the previous row, and I'm going to work a double crochet in that stitch. Then I'm going to skip over that mum flower center and work a double crochet in the next 11 stitches. Now there's different things that you can do to maintain your stitch count. You could work a chain 1 back behind that mum flower center and then work your next row into that chain. So if you were doing another row of double crochets, just work a double crochet in that chain 1 to maintain your stitch count going forward. You could work 2 double crochets in one of the stitches. If you're going to be doing that, so here's my, make sure I have 11 stitches in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you wanted to work 2 double crochets instead of working an extra one in that bottom bar down here. You could work 2 double crochets back behind that mum center. This would probably be the best place to keep that hidden, right here. And then work in the next 10 stitches. Whatever way works best for you, just so that you can maintain your stitch count. So continue on to the end of the row, double crochet in every stitch. So I've completed that final row of double crochets, providing that backing for this mum stitch. You can see here how pretty this stitch is. I think it would look amazing in different colors. Do 3 different rounds of colors or 1 color. So I think the sky's the limit with this pretty stitch. And so many different ways that you could use it as well in so many different projects. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, you can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss a new video. Take care, everyone. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.